Fishing season is in full swing in the North Country. Northern pike, walleye, bass, black bass season opens tomorrow, and there's a huge Bass Pro tournament on Lake Champlain this weekend. But there's one fish that you may not even know exists down in those North Country waters. It's called the mooneye fish, and even scientists don't know much about it. So they're enlisting the public to learn more. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Kenny Drugs, now offering a new mobile app to help patients better manage prescriptions for themselves and their family. More at kennydrugs.com. And Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, June 14th, Flag Day. First up, early voting for primaries in New York kicks off over the weekend. However, primaries are few and far between in the North Country. NCPR intern Zach Jaworski reports.
St. Lawrence, Hamilton, Lewis, and Franklin counties aren't holding any primaries this June. Across the rest of the North Country, there are just a handful of primaries being contested. In Jefferson, Clinton, Herkimer, Warren, and Essex counties combined, only 9 races have primaries. In New York's 24th Congressional District, voters in southwestern Jefferson County will choose between incumbent Congresswoman Claudia Tenney and challenger Mario Fratto in the Republican primary. In Clinton County, there are 3 primary races in the city of Plattsburgh. The Democratic nominations for 2 council seats and the mayor's office are up for grabs. 3 candidates are vying for Plattsburgh mayor. County legislator Wendell Hughes and Assistant District Attorney Dan Lennon will appear on the ballot. Independent candidate Iris Kane has launched a write-in campaign. The winner will face Republican Don Kasperzak, who previously served as mayor this November. Early voting for all primaries starts tomorrow and goes until June 23rd. In-person voting is on the 25th. For specific information on your county, reach out to your local Board of Elections. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Zach Jaworski in Canton.
A celebration of life for a beloved Adirondack forest ranger and LGBTQ advocate will take place next week. The event will honor Robbie Meekus, who died in an ice climbing accident in Alaska in April. She was 52 years old. Meekus served as a ranger for 25 years. She became a leader and role model in the queer community after coming out as trans in her 40s. The memorial will start at 11 in the morning on Saturday, June 22nd at Marcy Field in Keene Valley. It'll take place rain or shine. The event is open to the public. A group of researchers at Clarkson University are asking anglers in the North Country for help. They want to know more about the range of a rare prehistoric fish that makes its home in the region's rivers. It's called the mooneye fish. Catherine Wheeler joined some of those researchers on a fishing expedition and has this story.
David Selner drops a rusty anchor to the bottom of the Oswegatchie River in Heuvelton. It takes a couple of tries for it to catch. The sun is starting to set.
We're going to start collecting some of the environmental data, just water temperature, air temperature, the stream velocity, things like that.
Selner is a bioscience and biotechnology graduate student at Clarkson University. He and 2 undergraduate researchers start pulling equipment out of a big wooden briefcase. They're getting all of the baseline data before starting on what they're really here for.
So we are at the Heuvelton Dam, and we are looking for mooneye, which is a threatened species in New York. Over the last couple of decades, their range has declined a little bit, and we're trying to figure out why.
Mooneye have a flat body, silvery scales, and giant eyes on the side of their heads. They're usually about a foot long.
They're part of a large group of primitive fish, or early bony fish. They're kind of a living fossil.
Clarkson biology professor Tom Langen says mooneye have a couple of distinct characteristics. They have bony spikes on their tongues, they eat insects, they live across North America, and probably migrate up and down rivers.
That's about what we know about them.
So, to find out more, Clarkson researchers are taking to the Oswegatchie. The river is where mooneye are most abundant across New York State. On the river, Sellner has to figure out how to efficiently catch mooneye so they can tag and track them. A simple way would be to use a net to catch a ton of fish and then sort through them until they see a silvery one with a giant eyeball. But Sellner says that's not good for the fish.
A lot of times netting puts a lot of stress on the fish. There's a lot of mortality where they just don't make it.
So the team is borrowing a special boat from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to help them. Sellner and the researchers pull out long poles that extend over the front of the boat. A web of skinny wires hangs down into the water. It kind of looks like two jellyfish chandeliers. But those tentacles are pulsing with electricity.
And these are what put that electrical current into the water. Then that current sort of comes back to the hull of the boat to complete that circuit. So, in a sense, we're kind of like birds sitting on a power line.
When Sellner flicks on the electricity, all of the fish in the electric current's path are shocked. The smaller ones go belly up. They come to and swim away into the dark water. Others, like the big sturgeon, come to the surface, thrash around, and plunge back down.
It kind of looks like a wake of destruction behind you to see all these fish belly up, but eventually they sort of kind of slowly come to and recover and go back down.
There are a couple moments when the researchers reach for the net to scoop up what they think is a mooneye. But eventually the stars are out and the fishing trip ends without catching the elusive fish.
We did see quite a few silver suckers, red horse, a couple of pike, sturgeon, walleye. So we saw a variety of fish, just unfortunately not what we were looking for.
Sellner comes to this spot a couple of times a week, but he can't possibly find all of the mooneye in the Oswegatchie. And the researchers want to know where else the mooneye has made it beyond this river. Clarkson biologist Tom Langen says that's where the North Country's anglers come in.
We do know that fishermen do catch them, and the fish are really distinctive looking. You know, if you actually look at a photo, you really can't mistake them for anything that you find in this area. So we're very hopeful that we can start to build together a database and maybe identify other places where these fish occur.
Langen says he knows from experience that this kind of citizen science can work. He's heard from people who remember catching a weird-looking fish years ago. And if folks find them today, Langen has a plan. He says take a picture and release the fish. Then send him a note with the details, like where you were, what day, and what time.
Because we're really interested at what time these fish are feeding and what they were using when they were fishing for. Were they using worms? Were they using crickets? And were they fishing shallow or fishing deep?
Langen says learning more about the mooneye could be important to understanding the quality of the North Country's rivers. It might be a good indicator fish, a species that gives you a heads up when something isn't right with the environment.
Our long-term goal is to understand what their needs are so that we can both conserve them in the areas where they do occur and then potentially reintroduce them in areas where maybe they disappeared in the past because of conditions that weren't good. Many of our rivers, the environmental quality was much worse 50 or 100 years ago than they are today.
Langen says if you do catch one on your summer fishing trip, report it. You could help keep the mooneye around the North Country for decades to come. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio in Heuvelton.
You can find out more about how to get in touch with the Clarkson team if you catch a mooneye fish at our website, ncpr.org. We have more news there all the time, of course, and through the weekend. Music today by Caitlin Scholl of Lake Placid and Mark Corey of Watertown. Have a great weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.